Hello, race fans, and welcome once again to another high-octane episode of Trackside, proudly presented by Document Technologies. Document Technologies provides a comprehensive range of managed solutions, including multifunction devices, managed print services, and document management software. They're also known for their fast service, boasting an average response time of 2 hours or less, and offer high-quality product multifunction devices alongside document management and cloud hosting software. Stay tuned, racing enthusiasts, because the action starts right now, right here on Trackside.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Happy Friday. I'm Terry Turner. There is Randy Dye. Randy, ask me why I'm saying happy over and over again.
I don't know. Why are you doing that, Terry?
Well, I'm an elderly type of guy. And, you've been in the retail business and the car business for a long time. And sometimes you run into guys that are like cranky old people, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I put my fist through my very expensive studio computer screen this morning. Well, actually yesterday morning, as I was reading through my press releases. Would you like for me to expand on this, or would you rather me just shut up and move on?
No, go ahead. That's all right. We got to be transparent here.
Yes. So. Yes, that's a good word, and we could really delve into that word right there, but we won't tonight. This is not a political show, ladies and gentlemen. So, as you know, my wife and I are big fans of Daniel Dye, and we jump up and down on the couch and all that stuff when we're watching the race, and we're watching Daniel Dye run fourth and fifth and fourth and fifth and ninth and finish 10th. And then my press release comes across and it says, post-race inspection in the NASCAR Xfinity Series garage is complete. Justin Allgaier has been declared the winner, but the number 10 Colleague Racing Chevrolet, driven by Daniel Dye, has been disqualified for failing rear heights. Now, does it kind of fit to everything I've just said, or no?
Well, I mean, yeah, it's pretty much. I think he finished ninth, and yes, we did fail.
He did. Yes.
Post-race inspection. I think the thing that I would tell you is that he had some damage on the left rear, and that one came in that dust up a little bit with Ross Chastain, and then he had some pretty good damage on the rear bumper. When I don't know if you remember that late in the race when that accordion restart kind of got all messed up, and
yes, I do.
As a matter of fact, yeah, I think that was Taylor Gray that hit him, and that's the one where Christian Eckes he hit the, I think it was the 27 or the 26, no, maybe it was the 25. I think it was the 25, and just tore the front end completely off. Well, Daniel fortunately just barely touched somebody in the front, but he got hit pretty good in the back. And but I will say that what happens, what caused that to be low in the rear a little bit, and it wasn't very much, but it's not a matter of a little bit or very much, or it's just is it or isn't it, as far as NASCAR looks at it. There was the jack and bolt had backed out, and it basically about 3 turns, I guess. And so it was enough to make it fail post-race inspection. We were a little surprised, honestly, that we were asked to go to post-race inspection because, we understand the top 5, but the 9th place car is a little strange to be selected for post-race inspection. But there was some discussion about whether or not they should ask to do an appeal, and I neglected to tell you that there was some damage along the right side too, where Daniel got up against the wall going down the backstretch. but they all decided that they would probably lose. It wasn't a question of was it low? It was. Nobody's arguing that. We believe that it was a result of damage, but NASCAR doesn't think the damage was significant enough to be able to cause it. So I think that's the answer. But I will say this, to give you my other opinion on the matter. That's all well and good. It is what it is, and I'm not going to challenge the rules. I'm not the official. That's not my job. What I know is that the way you said it earlier when you led with this story, and you talked about how you saw him fourth, fifth, actually the leader at some point, he really ran a great race, and his spotter, Frankie, did a phenomenal job of communicating with Daniel about where other cars were fast and what was going on and the times. And I think as a team, meaning driver, spotter, crew chief, it was really, really good. So I hate it. It hurt us in the points for sure. But the actual experience of racing up front, like you said, and all that they learned together, even if you go back and you look at practice time, they were third fastest on the grid. We didn't qualify worth a hoot. I think 19th. But in terms of the practice of the race car, it was third fastest. So they went to the racetrack a little different than they've been going, and it was exciting to watch. It was exciting to be higher on the practice board than we have been in other times past, and it was just I think all in all it was a good weekend. It's unfortunate it's ruined by a penalty, and then that is what it is. It's just not much we can do.
NASCAR basically has said, well, we think you did it intentionally. I guess that was what frustrates me. So I'm going to call it the Chase Elliott syndrome, because of all the goofy stuff.
Yeah, 3 in a row.
That happens, and to see him run the way he ran and get through. I mean, that race in a lot of ways was kind of a mess. To see him drive through all of that stuff, like you said, spotter, driver, teamwork there, great, crew chief. We knew going into this race, we're right on the cut line. We really needed to do well in this race. Everybody was on their game, and just bang, just I don't know, caught me kind of by surprise. After destroying another couch, and so happy, and then have this come through. Anyway, like you said, the only way to look at it is only one way we can look at it. NASCAR made a decision, and there it is. Meanwhile, he goes to Mexico City. He's in Mexico City, ready to run tomorrow. Tell us about that experience. You're not going to be joining him. I'm kind of glad. I'm a little nervous about Mexico City, but my niece has to travel there a lot. But a cool race and a cool opportunity for NASCAR. And how's Daniel feel about it?
Well, you're a week early. We're off this weekend.
Right.
The Cup Series and the Truck Series are in Michigan, and we're off. So next week, we're down there in Mexico City, and I'm not going. Quite honestly, it's a very long experience because of being in a different country and all that goes with it. You kind of move around as a group, and I'd have to leave Daytona on Wednesday, go to Charlotte, get on a charter, fly to Mexico City, and not come home until Sunday for a race that's being held on Saturday. So it's just a lot of time to be away. This will be the first National Series race that I've missed that Daniel's raced from the time he joined ARCA, even ARCA East. I had been cleared after having COVID, but still wasn't wasn't back to normal when Daniel raced in Pensacola a few years ago in the ARCA East Series, and so I made every one, but this one's just too long of a process, I know he's been working hard. Daniel's been working very hard on the simulator to be ready as much as he can. No, he hasn't been there, so we'll just have to see. I'll be watching it on TV like everybody else.
Well, you could probably tear up a couch. Just warning you.
Yeah.
Let me apologize to my audience and my frustration when I recorded my local report. I did say it was this weekend, and of course it is not. So I apologize for that. But it's exciting that he's getting ready to do this, and I'll go back and say what an exciting race that he drove at Nashville. Just all of us here are quite proud of Daniel Dye in the 10. I'm sure the entire team is very proud of the effort that we had at Nashville.
Yeah, well, I think that's what the team has to take away. The tolerances are really, really tight, and it just comes down to, I don't even know that NASCAR feels like we did it on purpose. They just know we just didn't meet the measurement, and their decision is based on, did you or did you not? And they showed the team that we did not. So it is what it is.
Well, last question on it. Did anyone say or have an idea? As you say, typically the ninth place finisher is not called in. As to why he got called in, I mean that is a little unusual.
The only thing they said was that it was a random draw, and okay, well, it is what it is.
Gotcha. Well, again, some good stuff, and let's talk great performance, Randy. And how about this one before we go into the trucks section? Kyle Petty and the charity ride across America that we talk about every year that benefits Victory Junction and does a whole lot for young people. That ride happened already, of course, May 3rd through the 9th of this year, and they raised $1.4 million for Victory Junction, which is, this is serving children with chronic medical illnesses, which is, people don't realize, but there's a lot of that going on with young people. And Kyle Petty is committed to this every year, had lots of riders, and $1.4 million. That's big time, Randy.
Well, he's done this for years and years and years, and he's done it extraordinarily well. I think he's to be congratulated. I talked to him today, actually, and we talked about Adam and Daniel and the stuff that's going on, and Kyle has turned a tragedy into an amazing event, amazing fixture with the Victory Junction camp. And I've said this before. I had a lot of my friends in that sport have lost their lives, and not all of them in the sport itself. But I struggled a lot when Adam Petty had his accident and we lost him. I had a hard time with it, really hard time with it, because not only was he a good race car driver, but he was a good person, and he was doing good and doing so much good. And I kept saying to my question was, how could we take a person like this out of this world who was going to do so much good. Well, in the last 25 years, his legacy and his short time on earth has helped and continued to make a difference in the lives of so many people. And I'm not so sure that it's not more than it would have been had he been here. And credit to the Petty family for what they've done and continue to do the ride and continue to raise money and continue to help other people with significant physical challenges and make it so nobody has to pay to go to camp. It's really remarkable. I remember the day, not long, and it was about just about 7 days after Adam's accident, and Kyle asked me to ride with him on our motorcycles out to Boggy Creek Camp here, you know, and he presented a check then from the ride to the Boggy Creek Camp for $100,000. There was no Victory Junction camp at that point, but then he decided, and the family decided, this was something they were going to do, and I still have to. I mean, when we talk about it, Kyle is he's an amazing person. I would encourage anybody who ever gets an opportunity to meet him to go meet him. It's worth your time. He's one of the most positive, upbeat human beings you'll ever meet in your life.
Well, and and it certainly is. We've had the honor of, and I know you know him well, we've had the honor of having him on the program. And I think he had some good upbringing, Randy, from meeting his father. And, I still will never, ever forget Richard Petty being at your dealership and people lined up, including my wife, who was giddy over meeting Richard Petty. Richard Petty spending time with each and every one of that long line of people and signing autographs, et cetera. So, Kyle follows in good, strong footsteps.
Well, Kyle was taught by Richard Petty, but he was also Kyle. Also is Kyle, but he's just by himself. He's a great guy. Speaks very clear. He doesn't gloss stuff over. He just tells you what's on his mind. And I kind of, in a funny way, I've told the story about Richard in the past, but he said to me one day after a controversial thing that he got himself involved in, he said, well, why would them reporters ask me a question if they didn't want to hear my answer? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's kind of pretty much the truth right there. And he says, why bother? And so that's kind of the way Kyle is. Same. Yep.
Well, Richard has made some interesting comments in interviews over the years too that he's called on the carpet for, but good stuff. Speaking of that, and then we'll move on to trucks. I wish I would have known that you were going to be talking to him today, because I would have asked you to ask him to be on the program so I could ask him about his thoughts on the Chase Elliott syndrome.
Yeah, well, he would definitely have some information on that. Yeah, for sure. Kyle had a pretty cool career, and he understands all those things. And he has he's also a great person to use as a sounding board. It's pretty cool, actually. Yeah.
Well, I know he's a fan of Daniel Dye as well, so it would have been fun to talk to him. But, we probably should just let it go. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we will move right into the truck section of the Trackside program.
The Tough Trucks of NASCAR are next up on the agenda, presented by Aaron Delgado and Associates. With over 110 combined years of experience in criminal defense and personal injury, Aaron Delgado and Associates takes pride in vigorously representing clients in various challenging legal situations within the community. Now, let's go trucking.
All right, so right after trucks, we will get to the local section of it. I'll get it pulled up here. Randy, the NASCAR, all three series just keep on growing and keep on getting better all the time. All this good news every week, new sponsors, etc. MBM Motorsports is returning to the Craftsman Truck Series in competition at Pocono with Tyler Tomasi filing the number. What number is that? Didn't tell me what number that is. It's a Ford F-150 anyway. So I don't know if you know that young man, and here's a company that's Motorsports Business Management that we don't see on the track all the time, so returning at Pocono.
Yeah, it's that's an interesting place to go back to. I mean, to race, it's just so complicated. You know, the way that racetrack works. I don't. It's just that's an interesting choice to go to when you're not running the full season.
Well, and I don't know that driver, so I don't know his experience. Maybe he's a road course type of guy. I think he is, but you make an interesting point to go to that track. Lots of things happen, lots of up against the walls at that track. But hey, they're back, and that's good. And speaking of the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, I didn't realize that because time passes so fast. They are at Michigan, of course, on Saturday. They have not been there, Randy, for 4 years, since 2020. So, wow, I did not, kind of grabbed me when I got my release there that they're back after 4 years. Yeah,
it's like I said, I think there's other places I'd pick, but oh well, okay, whatever,
Well, anyway, we'll watch them run at Michigan, and we're glad to have them back after 4 years for sure. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I know I got things out of order, but I hit the wrong button. So let's hit the right button and go here. I'm kind of frustrated today, Randy. Should I just shut up about it, or can I keep talking about it?
It's up to you, man. You're the boss.
Okay. So let's go to the local section of the Trackside program.
One Daytona, located across from the world's center of racing, is proud to present our local segment, where we talk with a local star in your part of the country following a big win, event preview, and much more. One Daytona in Daytona Beach is a vibrant destination offering an array of shopping, dining, and entertainment options, including unique events, live music suitable for families and individuals alike.
Hot summer racing is in full swing. Volusia Speedway Park back in action next Saturday night, the 14th, with the Firecracker Classic, featuring 3/4 modified, 602 late models, 604 late models, dirt car UMP modifieds, and factory stocks. Gates open at 4 p.m., 6 p.m. hot laps begin, and racing to follow. A big time was had for all at New Smyrna Speedway last Saturday night, with the Sportsman winner, Donovan Ponder. George Spears is the winner in Super Stocks. Dustin Higdon, the Bomber A winner. Zach Curtis, the Bomber B winner. And Hank Baker Jr. gets the win in 602 mods. Tomorrow night, you'll see the J&C Great All Modified Twin 35 1 and 2, Sportsman, Ground Pounders, and Bomber Bs. Qualifying heats start at 6. Features start at 7:30. At Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola, the Road to Snowflake number 2 gets underway next Friday night at 8 p.m. with Alan Turner Pro Late Models, Pro Stock, Pure Stock, and Crown Stocks. NASCAR does a two-step on the track last weekend in Nashville. Raja Caruth gets the truck win. Xfinity winner is Justin Allgaier, and hey, Ryan Blaney gets the win in Cup Series. NASCAR trucks go to Michigan this weekend on Saturday at noon. That's on Fox Sports 1. Xfinity Series heads to Mexico City. That is at 4:30 on CW. And the Cup race again at Michigan. That's Sunday at 2 p.m. on Amazon Prime. Just a quick reminder, everybody, Amazon Prime is a subscription service, so get signed up so you can see the race. All right, again, ladies and gentlemen, the Mexico City race is next week, as Randy has pointed out. My bad on that. With that, I guess, Randy, I'm going to go get my composure while we take a break. When we get back, we'll delve right into Xfinity. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Trackside. We'll be right back.
Introducing the all-new tractor and outdoor power equipment section at DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors. Now you can gear up for your outdoor projects with premium brands like Bobcat, Massey Ferguson, Shindaiwa, Echo, and more. Need a powerful lawnmower for that perfectly manicured lawn? They've got it. How about a rugged tractor to tackle those big projects? DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors has you covered. And let's not forget the Lawn and Garden Center with everything from weed whackers to chainsaws. Commercial or residential, DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors has the goods to keep you moving. So why settle for ordinary when you can have extraordinary? Visit DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors today at their new location and explore the thrilling world of outdoor power equipment. DeLand Motorsports and Outdoors, where the thrill of the ride meets the power of the great outdoors. Your journey begins here.
Welcome back to Trackside as we now take a look under the hood in the NASCAR Xfinity Series presented by Daytona's Garage. Daytona's Garage offers more than just standard dealership customization. They provide a comprehensive range of services for personalizing and enhancing cars, Jeeps, and trucks of any make and model, focusing on both aesthetics and performance with affordability. Reliable service. Now, back to Terry and Randy.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Trackside. Randy, I will say, and I being a NASCAR fan, and you have been a NASCAR fan most of your life, we do get NASCAR fans are kind of rabid about their sport, and they do get wound up about certain things and excitement and frustration and all that. It's just part of the sport. And why is that, Randy? Why, baseball, you can kick back and enjoy it and watch it and not get, not tear up couches and everything. What makes NASCAR fans, Randy, before we go into Xfinity?
I think once upon a time that was an easy question to answer. And I think it was very much a true race fan, meaning they just really enjoyed watching the competition of racing and cars and all of that stuff. But I think what's happened over the years, it's a lot. There's a lot more to it. It's a lot more complex than that, and I think you can see that by the kind of sponsors. You talk a lot about the sponsors in the sport, and I think that's a great point, because that tells you a lot more. It tells you a lot about who is watching, because sponsors don't come to the sport, don't spend their money in the sport if they're not actually, if they're fans, if the product users aren't there. So I think it tells you a lot. Once upon a time, the racing sponsors were almost always automotive related, right? And now there's so much more to it than that. So, but I do think a part of it is the NASCAR fan clearly is a patriotic person. They enjoy, if you listen, go to a racetrack, go to a pre-race event, and you experience the patriotism that accompanies a NASCAR event anywhere in the country, and you hear the roar of the crowd and the enthusiasm for, our national anthem and the colors being presented and the military people and, my goodness, the flyovers that you experience, and I think that tells you a lot about who they are, and so. I think it's a patriotic American. Some of the best about America is a NASCAR fan.
Well, I think you hit it right on the head, and that just makes sense, because sometimes I question myself, why am I getting so excited about this? It's just a sport. It's just a race. But that helps me understand. Well, speaking of lots of NASCAR fans and excitement, the Tennessee Lottery 250 at Nashville Speedway in the Xfinity race had 988,000 total viewers. So most watched Xfinity race at Nashville since the series returned to the track in 2021. So that's a 29% increase compared to the 14th race of 2024 at Sonoma. So ratings continue to be good in all three series. I don't see the ratings because of the way Amazon does things, but CW does report. So, again, a big crowd watching the race and a lot of excitement on the track. Sport just continues to grow. We see it in the ratings all the time.
Well, I think you see the ratings, then you see the sponsors, then you see the crowd, and you see the enthusiasm, and it all ties together. It all goes together. So I think that's an amazing. It's an amazing, I guess, effort. But I think the sport. It's hard to imagine a sport that's as old as this one is still experiencing growth and new and different and more. I mean, all those words are great, right? When you're trying to go forward.
You got that right, no doubt about it. So congratulations again to everybody. Okay, so I got to go a little bit backwards now, a little bit more down. I thought about putting these together, but I decided not to. Connor Zillage, young man driving the 88, doing really well. Got some cup races coming up, some more of them. He gets a second-place finish at Nashville, but as a result of a couple of loose lug nuts, his crew chief, Marty Lindley, was suspended for one race, and the team was fined $10,000. Now, his second-place finish still stands. Unlike what happened with Daniel, he's disqualified. But, penalty has an impact on a crew chief. Without the crew chief, you don't get a second-place finish. It's a team effort. People forget that it really is, as we discussed earlier, with the spotter, the crew chief, and Daniel behind the wheel. Again, you've said this a lot about this particular penalty, but it continues to happen, and it happens every week, Randy.
Well, here's the thing. You got to understand why it happens. So a lot of these pit crews are cup pit crews on Sunday, and so now the cups, and we're not. This isn't the first year, but there's these guys are used to. A lot of these guys are used to one lug pit stops.
Yep.
And now they're doing 5 lug pit stops, and so it's clearly 5 times you get a chance to you increase the number of opportunities for a mistake, and it shows up. I think if there was a way to put this deal together, you kind of want the pit crews to be truck and Xfinity pit crews, and then Cup to be separate. But it doesn't work that way. These are guys that are doing all the above, and so it's hard. There's an opportunity to make mistakes, and we've had some of them. They've had some of them. Other teams have had some of them. And you're right. I still don't agree. I absolutely 100% don't agree that the crew chief should be suspended for a loose lug nut. I think I don't think that part of the penalty suits the crime. The crew chief doesn't want the lug nut to be loose any more than anybody else does.
Nope.
If you've ever been in a race car at speed with a loose lug nut and you're feeling that vibration, the stuff that goes through your head, not so much going down the straightaway, but going into the corner, it's not a real comfortable feeling. And if you've ever heard the exchange between a driver and the spotter/crew chief on the radio when that's happening, it's not something that's suitable for prime time viewing, right? It's just not good. So I would hope that they maybe in the off season they take another look at that. if you want to make the fine more money, whatever. But throwing the crew chief out, in my opinion, is I just think I don't think it's a relevant application. I think it needs to be changed.
Well, and I've asked you this question. You've addressed it several times, but folks that are listening are thinking, why don't they go to the single lug nut like they do in the Cup Series? So let me hit you with that again. Will that happen, you think, in the near future?
Yeah,
next year,
I do. I mean, typically what happens is whatever happens in the Cup Series is eventually what will happen in the other series, maybe not at the same time, and in this case that's obvious, but I think that'll eventually, it'll work its way into the other series, because the goal is that each of these are right now feeder series for the Cup Series. Now, there are some people that will tell you they're standalone, and there's a lot of people who will tell you they like the truck racing better than they like Cup racing. You know, all that stuff, all those opinions. But I believe that they'll get to a one lug nut arrangement in the other series for sure. I mean, the moment that there's a new chassis in either one, that's what's going to happen. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Let's hope that happens. Speaking of big sponsors and speaking of Mexico City, and it is, of course, next week, Mexico's leading telecommunications provider, it's called Total Play, and they are going to be a big sponsor of Carson Hocevar in Mexico City. So, you know, it's Mexico's AT&T, if you will, a big deal for Carson Hocevar. But let me say this, Randy. If you and Kyle maybe, I don't need to be there because I just make it worse, but you and Kyle maybe have a conversation, a conference call with Carson Hocevar about his attitude, and we're just going to go ahead and point out the wrecking of Stenhouse. Now, we know that Stenhouse has caused some wrecks too in the Nashville Cup race. Here's a young man who's, trying to get more into the Cup Series and hoping to move up in the Cup Series. I think you as a driver can say to Carson, hey, dude, I mean, this is not the first deal with him and his attitude. You don't want a bunch of enemies in the Cup garage when you're a rookie going into the series. Am I just losing my mind, or am I on point?
Well, I think, Kyle and I are probably going to disagree on this one. I think Carson Hocevar is, I think, number one, I do think he's a good race car driver. I mean, he has ability. I don't think he uses it at the right time. There's no reason to wreck Ricky Stenhouse or anybody else, for that matter, at that point in the race. Not at all. Driving that hard in that moment doesn't do anybody any good. And I think what you hear from the field, most of the veterans that he races against are saying, hey, look, nobody's going to fault the guy for racing hard. But there's a difference between racing hard at the appropriate time and racing hard and causing havoc at the inappropriate time. And what I believe most of the guys are saying, what they're referring to, is that was a perfect example, the one you just brought up. There was nothing to be gained by what he did in that moment. And and I think you got to be able to differentiate between how many laps and what the situation is. Circumstantial hard racing is important to understand and get your head around. To try to race every lap, there's guys over the years that I would say that were really, 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 really good at hard race. They were hard racers. I think they probably would have had better records if they chose the win to be a hard racer. Buddy Baker, whom I was a friend, I loved him, was one of those guys that raced hard all the time. And as a result, he ended up not finishing as many races as I think he could have. He just didn't seem to have the patience or the strategy mentality to to wait. If you go look at David Pearson, on the other hand, he was called the Silver Fox for a reason. And that's that he would just sort of ride and stay out of trouble until it was time to be a hard racer. and then he did it. And this guy won the second most races in NASCAR history.
He won a lot of races that he was counted out of the middle of the race. He wasn't even being talked about, and then bam, there he was. So,
right.
No doubt about that.
Yeah. So
I still think between you and Kyle, you could counsel him very well with two different opinions. But that's, I guess, all I'll say. I'm giving things titles these days. Like the Chase Elliott syndrome. This move is what you call that's being Logano'd.
Okay.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, let's roll right into the Cup section of the Trackside program.
UniFirst presents Conversation about the NASCAR Cup Series, the pinnacle. In auto racing, just like Cup, UniFirst is also the leader of the pack as the uniform and facility service experts. Let's go back to our hosts, Randy and Terry.
Well, Randy, in the Cup Series, things kind of coming to a head here. The U.S. Court of Appeals rules in favor of NASCAR. A three-judge Fourth Circuit of Appeals vacated a preliminary injunction order that they did this on Thursday that allowed 2311 and Front Row Motorsports to compete as chartered teams and receive the financial benefits as a chartered team. So the team says, their attorney says, Jeffrey Kessler says they were very disappointed by this ruling. It was narrow and lacked consideration, was their quote. But they're looking forward to the chances of winning the trial that's scheduled on December 1st. I think this probably pretty much sets the precedent as what we're going to see on December 1st. I know lots of folks would disagree, but things go as they are right now as a chartered team, but that's going to change on June 19th after 14 days. So this is a big ruling.
I think it's a big ruling. I think in this particular case, this is a battle. This isn't a war. This isn't the war. So they won the battle, but the war still is going on. So I think that's the first thing to say. This is definitely not over, but it is a battle that NASCAR prevailed. And I think I would just put it in, non-lawyer terms and say you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't go and challenge the validity of the organization, of the way it functions, say it's wrong, and still get the benefits. And I really think that's really all this ruling does, is it says, hey, wait a minute, you can't go out here and sue these guys and say you don't like this plan, but you want the benefits of the plan while you're arguing against the plan.
Right.
I think it's about that simple. I think it's common sense. It doesn't mean that the lawsuit's over. It means they're going to continue, but they just don't get to compete as chartered teams and receive the benefits while they're doing it. And I think that's fair. My position has been from the beginning, nobody says that you have to race in NASCAR. Nobody says you have to play football in the NFL. Nobody says you have to play baseball in Major League Baseball. But it does say if you're going to do any of those, you got to play by those entities' rules. And with the resources that 2311 has and some others, they can go start their own race series.
Yeah, it's been tried. No doubt about that.
I'm just saying, you can't claim antitrust when you have other options, including start your own.
Well, and it does make you wonder what, as far as 2026, what will they do if they, in fact, do lose the case, et cetera. So we'll wait and see what happens right now. But right now, Randy, a lot of people are kind of waiting and seeing what's going on as, we're halfway and, the media is saying playoff pressure's at full speed, which I guess it is. Ryan Blaney, the number 12, great to see him win that race. So Penske becomes the first team to have all the drivers, including the partner at Wood Brothers Racing, into the Cup playoffs. Hendrick still tops the standing as far as the championship goes right now. And we'll use Chase Elliott again as the only Hendrick driver that's not in the playoffs as we speak. So I guess the pressure is mounting. It's hard to believe that we're as far into the season as we are, but there it is. Penske's got all their guys in, including the Wood Brothers cars. So we'll see what happens going forward. Nobody can predict it.
Nobody can predict it for sure, and I think the playoff pressure. Everybody starts. I think there's playoff pressure from the first race. You know that if you win the Daytona 500, you're going to be in the playoffs. If you win in Atlanta, you're going to be in the playoffs, and that kind of goes through. But the longer you go, the more the pressure mounts, especially if you haven't won and you're trying to do the points, and then you got to make a choice. And how are you going to get in? And what happens if you get 16 guys who actually win a race? Then the points don't matter anymore because it's the 16 winners that get in. So there's all this stuff going on, and I think and to be fair, maybe that's a little bit of the Carson Hocevar mentality too. Why is he? I do want to say, to defend him a little bit, and I know I'm bouncing around here a little bit, but I want to defend him a little bit. It's typical of veteran anythings to get fussed up about the performance of a younger driver or a younger athlete because
Sure.
they challenge them, and so I think there's some of that that's going along with this, but God bless him. I think he's capable, and I'd like to see him have an undamaged race car to run at the end. Now, he had a good finish, for sure, but at some point in time, you can write this one in the book. Ricky Stenhouse isn't going to let that go. You can be.
I know.
Yeah, it's coming. I don't think it'll come at Michigan. It's just too fast a racetrack for that to happen. But it's coming.
Yeah, Stenhouse has already kind of hinted to that fact. Just a real quick one on that. We'll move on. Just remembering in high school baseball, I had in my mind I was pretty much a hot dog. I got the batting record, blah blah blah. I was a big dog. Going into college, though, I was not a hot dog. I wasn't arrogant or smart aleck. I was somewhat intimidated in my mind, and my dad, who's put more pressure on me than any coach ever put on me. Keep your mouth shut and prove it. Yep. And this kind of makes sense. Hocevar is a great race car driver, lots of potential. Just prove it on the track. Keep your mouth shut, which he talks too much, and don't wreck people. So, speaking of wrecks, Randy, we watched Kyle Larson. We pulled for him in the Indy 500 and then the Coca-Cola 600. He didn't have a good day. He was scheduled to run in the Australian Supercars event coming up as a driver for Jason Pride Motorsports in a sprint car. And he has made the decision just, I guess, the last couple of days and informed the key stakeholders that he is not going ahead with the plan. And nobody really understands exactly why. But, looking at the double attempt and how that came out, maybe he's decided, hey, need to focus on the championship and the Cup Series in NASCAR. What do you say?
I think that's it entirely. It's one thing to be able to go and if you do the the Indy thing well, and then you come back and you do your primary effort well, then nobody's going to say anything. But you go to Indy, he had problems. Really, he didn't just have problems with the day of the race at Indy. He had problems the whole month at Indy. And so that's then he goes to Charlotte and he has problems. And, you know, Nashville wasn't exactly sporty either, right? And so I think, I think it's a good idea. I really believe it's a good idea. Refocus, you know, re-engage, get all the other peripheral stuff out of your way, and go get back on top where you belong. And I don't think this is like this isn't devastating. I don't think I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, that this is the reason for the lack of success that they've had in the last couple events.
Right.
But it does give you a reason, right? It definitely does give you a reason. So you take it away.
Well, and you know, in my opinion, he has nothing to prove on these other racetracks. He's already done that. As we run out of time, Connor Zillage, 18 years old, scheduled to run a couple more Cup races, Atlanta and Watkins Glen, and the number 87 Red Bull Chevrolet. Atlanta on the 28th of June and Watkins Glen on the 10th of August. And another closing statement here, speaking of Atlanta, Randy, and speaking of sponsors, Atlanta Motor Speedway has been renamed Echo Park Speedway. Echo Park is an automotive group that I know you're probably familiar with, and they will be the title sponsor at Atlanta. That's Georgia's only big racetrack and a very famous and fast racetrack. So another big, you don't step up and get that title at a racetrack without an investment. And, automotive industry is a little bit wacky right now. So this makes another big statement as the dependence on the NASCAR fan to come buy vehicles and buy the products. More good news.
Yeah, I think it's great news. Again, this means that people are investing, and that's a good thing. And it'll be weird for me. I have a hard time. Heck, when they change the names of the series, you're scrambling around to try to remember not to say like the Xfinity Series. The good news is it's been the Xfinity Series for a long time, and I know some of the other names, and they're all gone now. And but it does take sometimes a little time to get used to it. But
yep.
I think it's okay. It's not the original Atlanta Motor Speedway like I used to go to back in the day anyway. So I think I can get used to this one.
Well, and in closing, speaking of names, and you haven't experienced this yet, Randy, but I have, and there are days when I'm not sure of my own name. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we sure appreciate you. Get out to see some racing at News & Murner is going to be underway tomorrow night, and we'll see you right here next week on Trackside.
See you at the racetrack, everybody.
And with the checkered flag waving, we're wrapping up this week's edition of Trackside. Fear not, race fans, because we'll be back next week, proudly presented by Document Technologies. Tune in for a fresh new episode packed with engaging interviews, captivating conversations, and all the exhilarating moments you've come to expect. Until then, keep the racing spirit alive, and we'll see you next time on Trackside.